We are obsessed with perfection. We are trained to be convenient, to never swear, to go to bed before midnight, to follow the rules. We spend years building the facade of a successful person and feel ashamed of our weaknesses. It seems this is exactly what the path to the top looks like. Now throw this trash out of your head. While you are maniacally color-coding your pens, evolution is laughing. Polished correctness is just the mark of an obedient cog. Reality is cynical. Your chaos, your laziness, and your endless anxiety are not bugs. They are naked symptoms that your brain has evolved further than the rest. Let us tear the labels off these vices and step into the abyss of true genius. Why is your urge to kill someone over their loud chewing the mark of a creator? How does masterful swearing reveal a high IQ? And why do a snoozed alarm clock and dark jokes make you smarter than the crowd? Today your worldview will collapse. You will learn 33 reasons to stop blaming yourself because your worst habits are just a side effect of an overly powerful processor in your head. The countdown has started. Here we go. Number 1. An explosion at a pasta factory level of design. Picture a classic scene. A desk where a mug of week-old dried coffee sits next to a tax return, a broken stapler, and a blueprint for a perpetual motion machine on a napkin. We have believed all our lives that a tidy workspace is the key to a clear mind. However, analyzing the behavior of outstanding thinkers shows the exact opposite. A perfectly clean desk is a sterile hospital ward where creativity goes to die. Mild chaos acts as a random number generator for our consciousness. When the eye catches incompatible objects, the neural network receives unconventional input, forcing its algorithms to break familiar patterns and synthesize innovative ideas. Mess is not laziness, it is the physical embodiment of multitasking, where every item serves as a shortcut for a minimized background process. Apparently, the heavenly engineers decided there is no need to waste RAM on sorting files, when you can just dump everything on your desktop and navigate it like a genius. Number 2. A linguistic firewall with a swearing patch. For a long time, we lived in the paradigm of kindergarten teachers assuring us that foul language is for those who lack the vocabulary to express nuanced emotions. This narrative falls apart the moment you run linguistic tests. A staggering detail emerges. People who can unleash a towering, architecturally flawless tirade after stubbing their pinky toe on a nightstand actually possess the broadest vocabulary and a sky-high IQ. The mechanics here are absolutely brilliant. It is not about a poor mind, but about getting root access to your emotional database. Using taboo words activates ancient parts of the limbic system, acting as a powerful pain-killing script and a critical pressure relief valve. This is a masterful command of the language code, where a person consciously chooses the most expressive tool in their arsenal to punch through social filters. Ironically, to swear beautifully, you have to be incredibly smart. Number 3. Delayed rendering of reality. The camera slowly zooms in on a person staring at the ceiling, refreshing their newsfeed for the 100th time, and watching videos about capybaras, even though their project deadline is in 3 hours. Society brands this as procrastination and demands immediate disciplinary execution, but let us look at the server logs. While the conscious mind pretends to be doing utter nonsense, the subconscious is maxed out at 100%. A brain with high processing power refuses to tackle a complex task head on. It gathers data, analyzes variables, and waits for the moment when the processor temperature hits the optimal point for a final sprint. This is not laziness. This is waiting for the perfect compilation window. A smart system knows that the most brilliant solution is born under extreme time constraints, when all the unnecessary branches of options are cut off. Fate is simply waiting for the timer to reach the red zone to deliver a masterpiece on the first try. Number 4. Hacking circadian rhythms. Our cave-dwelling ancestors fell asleep at sunset and woke up with the first rays of light because the basic survival instinct dictated harsh rules. At night in the dark, a saber-toothed tiger will eat you. It was reliable firmware tested over millions of years. And here we are, sitting at 3 in the morning, illuminated by the bluish glow of a monitor, reading an article about quantum physics or the mechanics of black holes. The ability to ignore this powerful ancient script and stay awake late 8 is direct evidence of high evolutionary development. Our brain literally overrides the factory settings of our biological clock, stating that it alone decides when it is night. The night owl mode is a rebellion against outdated software, a demonstration that intelligence has overcome the dictatorship of the sun. We have adapted our system to a world where information has become the main value, not the ability to hide in the bushes. Nature resists, of course, rewarding us with bags under our eyes, but who cares about facial textures when the processor is overclocked to the limit? Number 5. A cognitive crash test without airbags. Imagine a funeral or another extremely tragic situation where someone suddenly drops a dark, grim joke so twisted that everyone else's blood runs cold, while we struggle to hold back a nervous laugh. Moralists sound the alarm, accusing lovers of dark humor of psychopathy. That is a logic error. To understand and appreciate a joke built on a painful paradox or death, the neural network must instantly process a massive array of conflicting data, bypass the firewalls of fear and empathy, and find a logical inversion within it. People who laugh at what makes others cry consistently break records in verbal and nonverbal intelligence tests. It is like using the most complex encryption algorithm. The brain takes a terrifying, unbearable reality, runs it through filters of cynicism, and outputs an ironic laugh as a way to protect the psyche from overheating. We simply laugh in the face of the abyss because crying takes up way too many system resources. Number 6. Voicing the internal monologue of a developer. You are walking through a supermarket and see a respectable person with an intelligent face muttering under their breath. Okay, I got the milk. Now where did they hide those damn noodles? No, not those. The first thought is that this is a patient who escaped from a ward. Let us drop the stereotypes. Talking to yourself is not a program glitch. It is an advanced method of manual code debugging. Speaking your thoughts aloud materializes abstract ideas, translating them from RAM into acoustic signals, which exponentially speeds up object search and the structuring of complex information. It is as if a programmer were reading their code out loud to find a missing comma faster. Our brain uses the vocal apparatus as an additional interface to focus attention amid the chaos of external stimuli. So the next time you catch yourself in a heated argument with yourself in an empty room, do not rush to call a psychiatrist. You are simply running a scheduled audio defragmentation of your consciousness. Number 7. An apocalypse simulator on max settings. We lie in bed, it is quiet outside, but an epic thriller is unfolding in our heads. What if the economy crashes tomorrow? I forget my words during the presentation, and a meteorite hits the office building. Anxiety is usually treated and suppressed, viewed as a sign of a weak nervous system. What a monstrous underestimation. Constant overthinking is a side effect of an overly powerful imagination and excessive computing capacity. A high-level intellect constantly generates multidimensional future scenarios, calculating millions of possible outcomes to ensure the avatar survives in any, even the most absurd situation. Your brain works like a paranoid security department that continuously writes threat reports even if you just went out for bread. It is exhausting. It deprives you of sleep, but it is precisely this ability to foresee disasters that helped our species avoid extinction. We pay with gray hairs for a built-in probability radar. Number 8. A broken reality spam filter. An open plan office. Someone in the far corner is clicking a pen, the ventilation emits a monotonous hum, and a colleague is breathing too loudly. A normal person does not notice this background noise. Their neural antivirus blocks junk data packets. But this acoustic garbage drives us absolutely insane. Decreased latent inhibition, or the inability to filter out background stimuli, is the classic price you pay for creative genius. The architecture of such a brain leaves all information reception ports wide open. Darwin, Chekhov, and Proust suffered from the exact same thing. If you cannot tune out the ticking of a clock, it means your system is scanning reality at maximum resolution, absorbing every detail of the world to create unconventional connections. We cannot close extra tabs in the reality browser because it is precisely from these random, irritating snippets of code that the greatest insights are born. The world is too loud, but genius always demands sacrifices on the altar of acoustics. Number 9. Cryptographic encryption of meaning, delivering the phrase, "Oh yes, this is exactly what I have dreamed of all my life," with a stone-cold face while looking at socks gifted for New Year's, is the highest form of art. Sarcasm is often called the lowest form of wit, but that is only said by those whose processors cannot handle unpacking it. Using sarcasm requires an advanced theory of mind, the ability to instantly model another person's thoughts, read their intentions, juggle opposing meanings, and deliver the result with perfect tonal precision. It is a double encryption of social communication, where the text says one thing, but the metadata screams something else entirely. The brain of a sarcastic person works like a high-precision, real-time translator from the language of banality to the language of irony. We use this shield to test the intelligence of those around us. If the other person fails to catch the hidden code, it means they failed the authorization process for deeper communication. Number 10. Aggressive cache clearing. We can spend hours discussing Kant's concept of free will or explaining how an internal combustion engine works, but at the same time we stand in the middle of the hallway with a blank stare, trying to remember why we came here in the first place and where the hell our apartment keys went. People around us sigh condescendingly, hinting at early onset amnesia. Let us change the viewing angle. This is not memory loss. This is the system ruthlessly optimizing its resources. A brain with a high IQ aggressively deletes minor, everyday files, like the names of distant relatives, the location of glasses, or birthdays, to free up neurons for global, abstract thinking. It is simply not profitable for the neural network to store the junk textures of existence when complex processes analyzing the universe are running on the server. Forgetfulness in small things is an indicator that your internal hard drive is busy with enterprise-level projects, not taking inventory of paperclips in a desk drawer. We lose our keys because we are busy searching for the meaning of life. Number 11. God-tier energy saving mode. Legend has it that Bill Gates preferred to hire lazy employees for the hardest tasks, because a lazy person will find the shortest and most flawless way to solve them just to get back to doing nothing as soon as possible. We are used to whipping laziness as humanity's main vice, but the technical documentation of evolution claims otherwise. Laziness is the engine of progress and the pinnacle of optimization. A smart brain refuses to waste precious energy on unnecessary movements if the result can be achieved in 2 clicks. Why carry heavy stones by hand if you can invent the wheel? Why get up to change channels if you can solder a remote control? Laziness forces us to write macros, scripts, and automate routines. It is not degradation, it is the instinct of battery preservation. We lie on the couch not because we do not want to do anything, but because our brain refuses to participate in meaningless hustle. Apparently, the creator of the universe was also lazy, since he assigned gravity to do all the work for him. Logic seems to have left the chat at this point, but we are just getting warmed up. If you think everything described above is a bug, just wait. Next up are true coding errors that would give an average user a blue screen of death. Number 12. Manual pinging of attention servers. An endless corporate meeting. The sales chart blends into a gray mass. The speaker's voice sounds like a necromancer's spell, putting all living things to sleep. At this moment, our hand automatically reaches for a notebook and starts drawing cubes, spirals, eyes, or weird monsters. Management is furious, thinking we have zoned out. It is exactly the opposite. Doodling is the mind's emergency survival protocol in an information vacuum. When a monotonous speech threatens to put the brain into sleep mode, the motor activity of the hand sends constant ping requests to the central nervous system, forcing it to maintain a baseline level of concentration. We draw these meaningless patterns not out of boredom, but to prevent boredom from killing our focus. It is a brilliant workaround. You load a background process so the main system does not crash from a critical lack of stimulation. Number 13. A perpetual beta test of self-esteem. Think of any overly confident fool who speaks from a podium as if they have unlocked all the secrets of the universe. Then look at an outstanding intellectual who constantly doubts themselves, double-checks their conclusions, and is terrified of appearing incompetent. This phenomenon, known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, works flawlessly. An intellectual brain lives in a state of perpetual beta testing. The more gigabytes of knowledge we load into the system, the clearer we see the horizons of our own ignorance. High intelligence prevents checking the box that says I am perfect because the critical thinking algorithm is constantly scanning for its own errors. We torture ourselves with reflection, overthink old conversations before bed, and second guess every step because our database contains way too many examples of how easily one can make a mistake. Self-doubt is a sign that your Pride antivirus is working correctly, preventing the virus of absolute certainty from infecting the root of your system. Number 14. Kinetic venting of system overheating, fidgeting, tapping fingers on the table, twirling a strand of hair, or savagely biting nails down to the flesh during a difficult test. For centuries, teachers slapped our hands for this unaesthetic habit, writing it off as a symptom of deep neurosis. But fresh data from decoding the neural code has revealed something amazing. This is not fear. It is a side effect of extreme perfectionism. When the brain searches for the perfect solution to a problem at breakneck speed, the tension in the neural network reaches critical levels. Physical fidgeting acts as an active liquid cooling system for an overclocked processor. The body demands immediate physical release, a micro action to discharge the excess electricity. We chew on pens not because we are pathetic cowards, but because our internal supercomputer is running at its absolute limit, trying to render an ideal world within a flawed reality. Number 15. Disabling multiplayer for the story campaign. Stereotypes dictate that happiness lies in loud parties, huge groups of friends, and endless social interaction. But the more powerful the avatar's intellect, the faster it gets tired of this pointless co-op mode. We catch ourselves making up a ton of excuses just to avoid going to yet another meetup, preferring the company of a good book or our own thoughts. This is not misanthropy or social phobia. It is simply that a brain with a high density of neural connections is focused on complex, long-term goals. Frequent, superficial contacts cause system lag. They require massive amounts of energy to maintain empty small talk about the weather without yielding any useful loot. A smart person disconnects from the public server to dive deep into a single player campaign where they can develop their ideas without needing to adjust to the high ping of the people around them. We do not hate people, we are just saving bandwidth. Number 16. Rebellion against the system timer. Morning, darkness, and the piercing screech of an alarm clock shatters the silence. And what does a highly developed individual do? They do not jump out of bed with military posture. They reach for the screen and press snooze for another 5 minutes. And they do this 3 times in a row. Society calls us irresponsible sleepyheads. Biologists give us a standing ovation. The ability to listen to the needs of your physical body while ignoring rigidly imposed social frameworks, like the synthetic ringing of a device, is a sign of supreme mental adaptability. We enter into conscious negotiations with reality, micromanaging our condition and reclaiming precious minutes of REM sleep from a cruel world. This is a micro-protest against machine logic, proving that biological software is more complex and important than the gears of a factory clock. We simply refuse to let a piece of plastic dictate the startup conditions of our operating system to our central processor. Number 17. Paralysis from too many open tabs. We stand in front of the yogurt display at the supermarket and freeze for 15 minutes, entirely unable to make a choice. Relatives roll their eyes, thinking we are pathologically indecisive creatures. What a blatant injustice. This stupor is a direct result of our system seeing 3 times as many variables, risks, and probabilities as an average brain. While a regular NPC grabs the first red container they see, our algorithm is analyzing the ingredients, the sugar content, the brand's reputation, the carbon footprint of its delivery, and the probability of an allergic reaction. We cannot make a quick decision because we are trying to calculate the perfect path in a maze with 1,000 possible outcomes. The system freeze happens not because of weak hardware, but because we are trying to run too many future simulations simultaneously. We agonize over choosing a yogurt because our brain applies the exact same mathematical models to it as it does to choosing a life partner. Number 18. An audio bug of incompatibility with chewing. Someone sits nearby and loudly, appetizingly crunches an apple, smacks their gum, or noisily slurps their tea. To a normal person, it is just background noise. To us, it is a valid reason to plan the crime of the century and hide the evidence. Welcome to the world of misophonia. If you are driven to physical trembling and fits of rage by the specific sounds of someone else eating, it is not a sign of your nasty personality. It is the result of hypersensitive neural connections in the frontal lobe, the area directly responsible for processing complex cognitive tasks and high intelligence. Your brain is tuned so finely that it perceives the sounds of other specimens' biological activity as a critical error in the spatial code that requires immediate deletion. It is a hardware conflict. A high-level thinking module refuses to tolerate primitive animal noises. Nature gifted us with genius, but as a cruel joke, it bolted on a total intolerance for other people crunching their chips. Number 19. Forced termination of a download. Since childhood, an iron rule was hammered into our heads. If you start reading a book, you better die before you leave it unfinished. Quitting halfway was considered a sign of a shallow mind and a lack of willpower. But a smart brain works without sentimentality, like a ruthless archiver. We buy a highly praised bestseller, devour the first 50 pages, grasp the author's main concept, and with a clear conscience, toss the book onto the farthest shelf. We are not lazy, we are simply immune to the sunk cost fallacy. If the data packet is already unpacked and the core meaning is clear, why waste another 10 hours reading to the end just for the sake of politeness? Intellectuals scan the world looking for new meanings. As soon as a source stops providing unique bytes of data and starts adding filler, the brain drops the connection and moves on to the next server. We value our processor time much more than the literary ambitions of hack writers. Number 20. Disabling the physics engine. Everyone knows this scenario. You are brilliantly discussing macroeconomics. You turn around and loudly smash your shoulder into a door frame, drop your cup, or stub your toe on that same cursed chair for the third time today. People around you laugh at your clumsiness. But the mechanics of this phenomenon are stunningly pragmatic. Your body is just a transport vehicle for carrying your brain around. And when this brain is critically absorbed in an internal monologue, complex calculations, or the architecture of a new idea, it acts like a strict system administrator. It simply cuts the power supply to peripheral devices. Control over physical space, movement coordination, and monitoring the corners of tables are shifted to a background, low priority mode. All RAM is allocated to generating brilliant thoughts. We trip on flat ground because at that moment we are wandering through the labyrinths of the universe, not the living room. Number 21. A base trust error towards NPCs. It would seem that the smarter a person is, the more cynical, suspicious, and calculating they should be. The surprising paradox is that a high level of intelligence is strongly correlated with a striking amount of gullibility. Time and time again, we believe people, fall for the tricks of sly manipulators, and end up disappointed. How can such a powerful processor make such childish mistakes? It is all about projecting your own source code onto others. A rational brain builds a logical model. Lying drains energy, is illogical in the long run, and destroys social bonds. Therefore, other people must understand this too. We mistakenly attribute our own complex system of moral and logical coordinates to bots and random characters. This is a classic bug of a smart person, believing the world is just as logical and honest as their own thinking. We believe in the best not out of stupidity, but because it is incredibly hard for us to believe in the primitiveness of others. Number 22. A built-in syntax error scanner. Social media. Someone writes a heartfelt emotional post about the meaning of life, and we dive into the comments with one single goal: to point out a grammatical error in their spelling. They hate us, call us buzzkills and grammar police. But let us look at this through the eyes of a machine. The burning desire to correct other people's mistakes is not a nasty personality trait. It is evidence of a phenomenal level of pattern recognition. Our brain is trained to see structure and order. When it encounters a grammatical error, to the brain, it is not just a typo, it is a glitch in the matrix, a mismatch of textures, a dead pixel on the perfect screen of reality. The neural network experiences physical discomfort from the disrupted symmetry of the text and reflexively tries to patch this code. We do not want to offend anyone, we are just working as a free compiler that refuses to pass code riddled with syntax errors. At this point, the reality scriptwriters must have gone to lunch and let an intern write the plot. Do you smell that? That is the smell of a burning common sense processor trying to comprehend the next paradoxes. Number 23. Speedrunning without collecting achievements. We buy an expensive guitar, maniacally master the basic chords in a month, figure out the principles of playing, and then the instrument gets sent to gather dust in the closet next to the wood burning kit and the three-dimensional modeling courses. Quickly losing interest in a hobby looks like a lack of discipline, but in the language of logic, this is called ultra-fast information processing. The brain craves to unravel the very essence, to hack a new system of knowledge. As soon as the mechanics of the process are understood, the algorithm is decoded, and the initial learning curve is passed, the task loses its unknown threat status and becomes routine. It becomes unbearably boring to repeat the same thing over and over just for the illusion of perfection. We play life like speedrunners. We sprint through the main quest just to see the ending, and then we delete the game without wasting years collecting every coin scattered across the map. Number 24, crash testing other people's ideologies. A family dinner, a calm conversation, and suddenly we start defending the most absurd or unpopular point of view simply for the sake of the argument itself. We put on the devil's advocate mask, driving our conversation partners absolutely crazy. People accuse us of being argumentative and having a difficult personality. However, the mechanics of this process are purely technical. Your brain desperately needs intellectual stimulation. When the environment becomes too bland and agreeable, a smart person artificially creates conflict to test an idea's durability from every possible angle. We attack the beliefs of others not to humiliate our opponent, but to force them to defend their position and generate new arguments. It is a stress test for someone else's firewall, a sparring match with wooden swords where the goal is not victory, but the beauty of logical parries. We argue because total agreement is the death of dialogue. Number 25, locking the avatar's base textures. Steve Jobs wore a black turtleneck and jeans for decades. Mark Zuckerberg bought identical gray t-shirts in bulk. An average person sees this as a lack of taste or a rich person's quirk. But if you check the system monitor, a brilliant reality hack is revealed. The brain has a limited resource for daily decision making known as decision fatigue. Every time we stand in front of the closet, deciding whether to wear a blue shirt or a red one, we are wasting precious processor cycles for nothing. Wearing the exact same clothes every day is a conscious blocking of unnecessary visual choices. We lock the avatar's appearance on factory settings to save energy for solving equations, running companies, or inventing new worlds. It is the absolute triumph of function over form. Why waste RAM on updating skins when you can direct all that power into leveling up your skills? Number 26, blocking low battery notifications. We sit down with an interesting project, start coding, drawing, or reading, and when we finally look up, it is the dead of night outside, and a lone wolf is howling in our empty stomach. Relatives are terrified, dietitians faint at this disruption of an eating schedule, but the phenomenon of forgetting to eat during a state of deep flow is a triumph of neurobiological focus. When the brain finds a task proportionate to its power, it mobilizes all of the body's resources to solve it. It consumes a colossal amount of glucose, but at the same time, it programmatically blocks the body's baseline signals for hunger, thirst, or fatigue. It is the equivalent of an operating system disabling pop-up notifications while running a full-screen, high-demand application. We are not starving ourselves. We are simply postponing the refueling of our physical shell to finish our intellectual rendering. Food is not going anywhere, but a brilliant thought might just vanish from the cache. Number 27, desync between processor and printer speeds. You open your notes or a notebook and try to decipher your own scribbles, which look like a cardiogram during an earthquake or elvish cuneiform. In school, bad, illegible handwriting was considered a sign of laziness and disrespect for the teacher. In reality, it is a hardware synchronization issue. The neural network generates words, concepts, and sentences at such a frantic speed that the clumsy mechanics of a human hand holding a pen simply cannot physically keep up with drawing the letters. This is a conflict between a hyperspeed data stream and a hopelessly outdated output port. Your hand tries to take shortcuts, swallows word endings, and turns letters into straight lines just to keep up with the flying thought. We write like chickens scratching in the dirt, not because we are sloppy, but because our internal printer was never designed to print at the speed of light. Number 28, choreography for syncing cores. The phone rings, you pick it up, and suddenly you start pacing miles around your apartment. You walk into the hallway, return to the kitchen, circle the couch, and keep this up until the end of the call. To an outside observer, it looks like you are training for a marathon or having a panic attack. Science, however, sees a brilliant engineering trick. During a complex conversation, the brain needs to simultaneously process audio information, generate answers, read tones, and maintain context. Physical movement like pacing back and forth activates the motor cortex, which helps the two hemispheres of the brain work in sync. It is like overclocking a processor. To boost creativity right in the middle of a chat, we launch a background physical action. Our legs work like a metronome, setting the rhythm for the smooth operation of the thinking apparatus. We are not being restless, we are just load balancing our servers. Number 29. Refusing to enter sleep mode. It is 3 in the morning. The city is sleeping. The birds are sleeping. Logic itself is sleeping. And yet, we are lying in the dark with our eyes wide open, overthinking why we gave a clumsy answer back in 1995, or figuring out how quantum entanglement works. Insomnia is exhausting, but for people with a high IQ, it is a frequent side effect of the inability to stop the mental centrifuge. When external stimuli vanish, a powerful processor cannot just shut down. The lack of new tasks is interpreted as a command to start analyzing internal archives and generating endless hypotheses. Our brain becomes hyperactive at the exact moment it is scheduled to be in a deep energy-saving sleep. This is the curse of high-end hardware. It does not know how to cool down instantly. We lie there staring at the ceiling because closing our eyes means being left alone with 1,000 open applications that refuse to close on the administrator's command. Number 30. Emergency disk defragmentation in the middle of the day. The Spanish invented the siesta, and intellectuals took it to the absolute extreme. The overwhelming urge to faceplant into your keyboard or crash onto the couch at 2 in the afternoon is often branded as a lack of productivity. Employers demand non-stop activity from 9 to 6 with no downtime, but biological code is relentless. Daytime sleepiness is not a sign of a weak character. It is a critical requirement from a powerful processor to reboot its RAM. A brain that constantly solves unconventional problems accumulates junk data at a much faster rate. It desperately needs a short reboot, a 20-minute shutdown phase to transfer data from short-term memory into long-term storage and clear the cache for new heroic feats. We do not nap during the day out of laziness. We are performing scheduled system maintenance so that by evening we can flip the world upside down all over again. Number 31. Immunity to mass viral updates. Everyone around suddenly starts wearing neon sneakers, discussing a trendy TV show, or using stupid slang from social media. Meanwhile, we stand there in our old jacket, watching an old movie, feeling genuinely perplexed. Ignoring trends in fashion is not the stubbornness of an old-timer. The ability to resist the herd instinct, to refuse to download a mass update just because everyone else is doing it, requires colossal cognitive effort and active critical thinking. Our security system analyzes the trend and issues a verdict. This software provides no practical use. Installation canceled. Being unfashionable is a luxury only afforded to those whose inner world is richer than the displays of mass market stores. We simply refuse to waste resources maintaining external decorations forced upon us by marketers, staying loyal to our base, proven code. Number 32. Overclocking the processor with liquid stimulants. Your third cup of coffee before noon, strong tea, energy drinks. Society scares us with tachycardia and addictions, urging us to drink pure spring water and breathe fresh air. That is excellent advice for someone whose nervous system runs on idle, but a highly intellectual brain demands an enormous, monstrous amount of energy to constantly scan and analyze a multi-layered world. It physically burns through fuel faster than the body can synthesize it from a light salad. That is why we consciously, like mad mechanics, pour caffeine into ourselves, artificially stimulating our neurons and widening our vascular bandwidth. It is like injecting nitrous oxide into an overheating engine. We know the consequences, but we choose processing speed right now because living at low RPMs is practically death to us. Number 33. A chronic shortage of difficult quests. The things that send ordinary people into wild excitement, like basic jokes and comedies, predictable blockbuster plots, or simple water cooler gossip, bring us to absolute, unbearable yawning. Constant boredom is the ultimate scourge of high intelligence. We look at the world through the eyes of a max-level gamer who is locked in the starter zone for noobs. The monsters are weak, the quests are primitive, the dialogue is terribly written. Our brain is in critical need of complex, paradoxical food. If the surrounding reality is too simple, understandable, and linear, the system gets bored, sending signals of depression and apathy. We seek out drama, puzzles, and complex philosophical concepts not because our lives are so great, but because our minds are suffocating in a vacuum of banality. Nature built us to solve impossible tasks, and we suffer openly when things are just too good. The doors of our museum of system errors are slowly closing. We are used to being ashamed of our quirks, trying to cure our anxiety, organizing our desks, and conforming to the sterile standards of normality. But as the logic of this lazy yet genius world proves, it is precisely within the bugs that the true potential of the system lies. We are all brilliantly written, unpredictable code, where every error makes us smarter. Now that you know the truth, take a look into your own system logs. What other strange habit, which everyone considers a flaw, are you hiding from the world? Write fact number 34 in the comments and tell your story of a bug that became a feature. See you in the next reality patches. Logging off.